Hello, everyone. James Wilson here. And today I'm going to do my final 2020 presidential election prediction video. I make my predictions based on data that I have received, and also I use it based on pure mathematics. I do look at the polls as well and kind of take that into consideration on my prediction. I use Target Smart mainly, and some other polling, some other websites as well that I will put down in the description so you can look at it yourself. But before I get into the video and my prediction, I found an article by Wonderful Yahoo, okay, because you know how great they are. Extremely non-biased, okay. Early votes in Texas soar past 2016 turnout. That's actually correct, okay. They have soared in early voting. A lot of people have voted, okay. And I want to read some of the things that it says. Texans in general are pretty fed up with how things have been. With turnout so high, Democrats are in the last-minute bid to flip the state blue. And Biden's running mate Kamala Harris toured the state Friday, urging voters to not let up. Probably with her, 50 people that attended that, rally, I guess if you want to call it that. They don't want to catch the germ, So, but anyway, so they're talking. It says Texas hasn't voted a Democrat, so this narrative is pretty much saying, you know what? There's a lot of people that are fed up. Texas is going to turn blue, and everyone's talking about it. Well, let's take a look at the data here. Okay, in the state of Texas, Republicans are they're overperforming. Okay. Democrats, okay, and their lead is over 1 million votes. Okay, so you can talk about this all you want, but Texas is going to stay red. Okay, now I have it as safe red because they're leading by over 1 million votes. So there you go. So that's their narrative versus the data. The data shows something different. Republicans, Texas are fed up with the, they don't want it, they're scared they don't want a Joe Biden in office. When you have the media talking about the state flipping blue, they're gonna, the Republicans mainly, who may not even have voted before, they're gonna get out and vote for Trump. So, thank you for scaring us, media. So, let's go ahead and move on here. Before I get into the data, though, I do want to fill out the states that that are safe Democrat, that will go to Joe Biden, and the states that will go to Donald Trump. Okay, and after I do that, then I'll go deeper into detail with the swing states. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the Democrats. In the state of California, it doesn't matter if you're locked up for 100 years, the state's going to go Democrat. Okay, Oregon's going to go Democrat, Washington, New Mexico, Colorado, and you go up here to Northeast, New York, Vermont, Maine at large, but not Maine's 2nd district. That's a swing right there. Okay, so the majority of Maine, and Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington D.C., North Carolina. Even though some people say it could flip, I don't see it. Illinois is going to go blue. And Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, will also vote Democrat. And just looking at the rest of everything here. Okay. And that's it. These are the states that are going to go for Joe Biden. Okay, and now I'm going to go over with you with the states that are going to go to Donald Trump. Okay, and I'm not going to do lean or likely in this video. If you win the state, you win the state. Period. Okay, so Alaska, Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Dakotas, Nebraska, but Nebraska's 2nd district is a swing district, okay, and Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, okay, West Virginia, and I think that is everything. Yeah, that is everything. Okay, so right now, guaranteed electoral votes, Biden has 212 electoral votes, Trump has 163 electoral votes. So now we're going to go ahead and get started here. Okay, and I kind of had my own order of states where I want to talk about, so I'll just go ahead and go in the order that I have. So first I'm going to talk about the state of Ohio. Okay, Trump is leading in the polls, or it's neck and neck. It's within the margin of error. Okay, so we're just going to take a look at the state of Ohio and how they performed. One of the things that I look at here is how did they perform compared to the last election, 2016. I also take a look at the percentage of votes that are already casted. Okay, and what I do is I kind of analyze it, kind of get a feel of what's going to happen. Okay, so the way I do this is based on modeled party. Okay, I don't know how accurate this is, but to me, when I looked at it, it seemed fairly accurate. So I'm just going to roll with it. Okay, so the way I do this is, we all know that there are some Democrats that are going to vote Republicans, and we all know that there's going to be some Republicans that vote Democrat. Okay, and you'll have the Democrats saying, well, the Republicans are tired of the virus and everything that's going on, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They're definitely going to vote for Biden more. And then the Republicans are going to say, well, the Democrats, they're way too left, they're far out there. There's going to be a lot of Democrats that are going to vote for Donald Trump. So that's how it goes. So the way I look at it, I want to be as non-biased as possible. If a Democrat's going to vote for Biden, and the Republican's going to vote for Trump. Anyone that's unaffiliated is 50-50. I kind of throw them out. Okay, so based on that, in the state of Ohio, the way I look at this is 2016, the Democrats had the lead in early voting. In 2020, it's flipped. The Republicans have the lead in early voting. When you look at this graph, you will see that the Democrats had a 7.5% lead in 2016. Now the Republicans have a 6% lead. That is a 13.5% switch, actually, in favor of the Republicans. Okay, and I will say this, that on election day, they did a poll. They said a third of the Democrats are going to come out and 2/3 of Republicans are going to come out. I don't necessarily believe that. Okay, I think there's more Democrats that are going to come out on election day, but I still think more Republicans are going to come out. And later on in the video, I'll explain it. But I will tell you this. In the state of Ohio, I'm extremely confident that this state's going to go to Donald Trump based on the metrics. Okay? Right now, in early voting, he has a 6% lead. Okay? And so I think he'll probably win the state by maybe around 8 points or so. It's kind of how I feel about that state. And so that with that information, Ohio's going to go for Donald Trump. Okay? So the next state I want to talk about is the state of Georgia. Okay? So we'll take a look at the state of Georgia. All right, so the state of Georgia, by percentage-wise, Republicans did underperform. Okay, but there's more voting. In the state of Georgia, 86.5% of the votes was cast compared to 2006. Compared to the 2016 election, and right now the Republicans have an over a 200,000 vote lead. Okay, their lead is almost 250,000. Okay, and I was a little worried about this state because of the Macomb County and all the mail-ins that they're receiving, but it doesn't look to be terrible, okay, for the Republicans. Last time the Republicans had the lead by about the same margin, okay, and we are in a pandemic, so there should be more Democrats that vote early or mail-in compared to Republicans. So Democrats should lead on the percentage basis. As I said, Ohio was not the case. Okay, but in Georgia there is a lead, a slight lead. It's about 7% lead for the Republicans before the Democrats had a 10.5-point lead. But it's not that much, folks. And early voting is pretty much over. We have the election on Tuesday. Okay, so with that information, the Republicans are leading in the early voting, and they're leading in everything so far. I'm going to give the state to Donald Trump based on that metrics. I think Donald Trump would probably win the state by about 3 points. Okay? Because I do feel that there's going to be, as I said, I do feel that there's going to be Democrats that are going to come out during Election Day. African Americans, they're going to come out more than you think, than people think, actually, on Election Day. That's just my opinion. I think the people that are really scared of the virus are white liberals, to be quite honest with you. So, with that information, I do feel that it's going to go to Donald Trump. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and move on to the districts, actually. So first we're going to talk about Nebraska's 2nd district, because I know that was close last time. Last time Trump won it by 2 points. And that's another thing that I'll look at, is who won the state last time and how are they performing compared to last time. Okay, just because the Democrats are winning does not mean that they're going to win the whole thing. Okay, so Nebraska's 2nd district, when you look at the numbers, for 2016, the Democrats had a 7.5% lead. Now, it's virtually a tie. Okay? It's a tie. 54.1 of the votes were casted. And it's less than 100 votes, people. The Democrats had the lead last time. Now the Republicans, and we still have more votes to be tallied. And so unless the Democrats outvote the Republicans on Election Day, Donald Trump's going to win the state and going to win the district. And I do believe that Republicans are going to outvote Democrats. It's not 2-1, but it's going to be enough for him to win the state, win the district. Okay? So with that information alone, that's going to go Republican. Okay? Now, in the Maine 2nd district, we'll take a look at the numbers on Maine 2nd district. Okay, so Maine 2nd district. All right, so when you look at the data here, I know the Republicans are trailing the Democrats. There's 58.2% of the votes casted, so you still have about 2/5 of the vote that have been casted yet. But when you look at it, in 2016, the Democrats had a 17% lead. That lead has shrunk to about 8, like cut in half almost. Okay, and when you look at the total votes, in 2016, the Democrats had a 15,000 vote lead. Now it's 14,000. Where's this Democrat surge that the media was talking about? Because I don't see it. Okay, and so based on that, and based on the fact that he won it very easily last time, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's going to win Maine's 2nd district. And now we're going to move on to the state of Arizona. Okay. And so this is an interesting state. Okay. All right. So in the state of Arizona right now, the Republicans have about a 9,000 vote lead. Now, I was doing trends videos the whole entire time here. And Arizona was one of the states that I was looking into because I wasn't sure who to pick for that one. So looking at Arizona, this was back on Tuesday, the 27th of October. I actually looked at their numbers, okay? And the Democrats had a 61,000 vote lead on the 27th of October. And every day I checked it, the lead has shrunk. And now the Republicans have a 9-point lead, okay? It's pretty simple. I know compared to before, the Republicans are underperforming. But 91.1 of the votes were casted already, so a lot of people decided to come and vote early. Okay? And so when it comes to election day, you're going to have more Republicans that are voting on election day. I just said I don't think it's 2 to 1 or you know, anything like that. I don't think it's that big of a margin. But with that information, Donald Trump should win this state. Okay? And I think he's probably going to win the state by about a point. It's not going to be much at all. I know the state was trending blue on every election. From Romney to Trump, it trended blue heavily. But I just think that, you know, Trump won it by 3.5 percentage points. And before that, Romney won it by 13. But I think it had a lot to do with the candidate, not necessarily the fact that it's trending blue that heavily. So I think maybe 1 to 2 points is more fitting. For this, based on the metrics and everything, and you have about less than 10% left over, so I think it's going to be neck and neck. I think it's going to be really close, but I think Trump's going to win it by, I would say, by 1 point. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and Donald Trump's going to win the state of Arizona. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to. We're going to go ahead and move on to the state of Nevada, okay? And this is very interesting. I'll take a look at the state of Nevada real quick. All right. So right now in the state of Nevada, it's literally a tie, okay? I think Democrats might have a 500 vote lead or something. But as I said, I was looking at the trends. Okay, and it's trending red again. From the 27th of October, the Democrats had a 22,000 vote lead. Now it's virtually a tie. Okay, and we still have ballots to be counted. We have at least 10% more ballots to be counted. And as I said, I think the voting's going to be more this time around, obviously. But we have at least 10% more ballots, and as I said, Republicans are going to vote more than Democrats. And since I know there's a lot of mail-ins that came in Nevada, but they still have polling places that are open. And I do feel that Republicans are going to go to those polling places on Tuesday and vote for Donald Trump. It's not over yet, okay? It's not over yet in this state. So I had this state for Biden, actually, okay? But this is, I'm going to call this my upset of the election. Okay, this state right here is my upset of the election. It's like when you do your football picks and you want to pick an upset of the week kind of deal. Well, this is my upset of the election. Okay, I actually think Donald Trump's going to win this state by a point. I really do. And that's just because of the data that I've received from Target Smart. It's literally a tie. And you still have more voting. And Republicans are going to go out there and vote more than Democrats on election day. You know, it's not going to be 2 to 1, but even if it's 51-49, you know, and everyone voted the same here, and it's pretty much split here, Donald Trump's going to win the state. As I said, I think he's going to win within a point, probably by a point. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on, and we're going to move on to the state of New Hampshire. Okay. All right, so the state of New Hampshire, I don't have a lot of information. This is kind of where I look in the polling as well. He's down by about 10 points in the poll. And right now, Democrats are outvoting Republicans. Okay? And it's in the Northeast. So, as I said, I don't have a whole lot of information from this state. It only casted 20% of the votes. So we still have a lot of voting left. Last time Hillary only won it by 0.3%. And I can tell you now that college students that go to college in New Hampshire but live in a different state such as Vermont or New York or something, they can't vote this time around. They could before, but they made a new law saying that they can't vote now. But I just don't have enough information on this state. And since he's losing by about 10 points, I'm going to have to give it to Joe Biden, actually. So I'm going to have New Hampshire going to Biden, but I believe Biden will win by a couple of points, probably 2 points. Okay, and that's just a guess. Okay, maybe 3 at the most. I think, as I said, I think the polls are extremely off. But when you have this new data coming in from Target Smart, it has just Democrats crushing Republicans. Okay, so I can't really, I can't predict Trump to win that state if the margins were this high. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it to Joe Biden, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the state of Minnesota. Okay, and I looked at the trends in the state of Minnesota. Over half the ballots have been casted. Okay. And when you look at it, the Democrats have a huge lead. They have a 218,000 vote lead. When I first looked at this back on the 27th of October, it was a 211,000 vote lead for the Democrats. I did some mathematics. It's going to take a lot for Trump to win this state. The Democrats are actually doing pretty well. They have a bigger lead than 2016, and the performance is similar. Okay, but you have additional votes left, but you don't have a whole lot of votes left. Okay, and so when you look at it, he has to make up a lot of ground, and I just don't see him making up a lot of ground. So it has to be like 60-40 pretty much for Trump to win back the state. Okay, and this state has voted Democrat since 1972. Hillary Clinton won it last time by 1.5 points. I mean, you have about 1,427 votes left, assuming that the amount of voting is the same. As I said, I think it's going to be more, but as I said, he's losing in the polls too. So he's down 218,000 votes. I'm going to predict Biden to win the state. Okay, I just don't see Trump coming back from that big of a deficit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on. As I said, I try to be fair about everything, looking at the numbers. I look at the polls a little bit as well. It's trending blue a little bit in Minnesota by about 7,000 votes. So I'm giving it to Biden. I don't see Trump cutting into that lead. So we're going to move on to the next state we're going to talk about is Iowa. Okay. And last time he won it by a lot, like 9.5 points, I think. So I look at the metrics here. Democrats had about an 11% lead. Now Democrats have about 5% lead. Okay, that's a 6% difference in favor of the Republicans when you look at the vote tally for 2016. He had a 60. It looks like the Democrats had about a 63,000 vote lead. Now the Democrats have a 46,000 vote lead, so it actually shrunk. Democrats are supposed to be voting more in massive, okay? And you still have about 45% of the votes left. And so, Republicans are overperforming in the state. Even though the Democrats have the lead, you still have the election and you still have 45% of the votes that need to be casted still. assuming that the votes are, the total amount of votes are the same. So even though the Democrats are winning, I do feel that Trump's going to win the state. My conservative estimate's about 5 points, maybe 6 points. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to win the state. Okay? So I'm giving it to Donald Trump. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and move on to the state of Michigan. Michigan, I did it a little bit differently. The math, because it did trended right, but it trended right very little. So I'm going to talk about it. Okay? And so when I did this back on the 27th, Trump was losing by 105,000 votes. Now he's losing by 98,000 votes. It did trend right a little bit. But I want to go over some percentages, and this may be a little bit too much for you, but I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible. When I first looked at the state of Michigan, there's 47.9% of the votes were casted compared to 2016. Trump was losing by 105,000 votes. Now now 54.6% of the votes were casted, and he's trailing by 98,000. So that's a 7,000 vote difference. The percentage difference between 47.9 and 54.6 is 6.7. Okay, so I take 6.7, write it down. The difference between 100% and 54.6 is 45.4. So I take 45.4 divided by 6.7, you get 6.77. Okay, and when I take 6.77 and multiply it by 7,000, I get about 50,000. So I do it based on projected win. Okay, it did trend right, but it didn't trend right enough. Okay, so I project Donald Trump's going to lose the state by about 50,000 votes, people. That's what I project based on the mathematics. Okay, so Biden's going to win the state by about a point or two. About a point, 1 point lead for Biden. Okay, and that's just based on pure mathematics. Now, if Republicans overperform, then yeah, that state can easily switch over to Donald Trump. Okay, but I'm just doing it based on the trends here, and it's not trending right enough for me to give it to him. Okay, so that state's going to go blue, and the next state I'm going to talk about, and I know I'll write everything down state by state and how I calculated it, but we're going to go ahead and move on now to the state of Florida. Florida is a little bit interesting. I'll look at the Target Smart data, but there's other data for Florida that I find extremely fascinating. But right now, the Republicans have the lead. Okay, and it's trending right compared to 2016. Republicans have about a 22,000 vote lead, but I really didn't use this Target Smart. I used another program that I felt was a little bit more accurate, and that is this Florida map here. Okay, and so this is based on registered voters that vote by mail and by person. And right now, Biden has, I know people can't see it, but right now, Biden has about a 90, I can't say Biden, Democrats are leading Republicans by about 92,000 votes. Now, when I looked at this back in on October 27th or 20, I think it was maybe the 26th, the Democrats had over a 300,000 vote lead. That lead has shrunk significantly. And I actually did some math. So what I did was, when you look at this, early votes in person only, okay, because during the election time, they're going to vote in person. You see all that red, okay? But when you move up here, the Republicans outperformed Democrats, okay, by over 13%. And so I did some mathematics, okay? And I calculated the percent here, okay, and this came out to, if I just moved all the independents and I threw them out, this is about 58-42. So in states like Florida, Wisconsin, maybe in Pennsylvania, states that were really close, because Florida's a bellwether state. It's a true swing state, okay? Republicans are outvoting Democrats 58-42 in in-person voting. So I predict that during the election, okay, it's going to be about the same as early voting. So, and that's a conservative, that's conservative way of looking at it, but that's what I think, okay? So now the question is, how many votes are left based on 2016 numbers? I will say this, I think it's going to be more voting again. But as I said, I'm just doing this based on a conservative way of looking at it. Early votes all. When you look at early votes all, and I'll move this a little bit so you can see, 8 million, looks like 8,653,000 votes about, okay? And then what I did was I calculated that, and I subtracted it from the votes total votes in 2016. And what I came with was a number of 700 and something thousand. Let me take a look here real quick. 767,000 votes. Okay, so if the voting was the same as far as the total votes, if the total amount of votes was the same as 2016, which I think is going to be more, obviously, there's a 767,000 vote difference, and based on the 58-42, 58% of people voted Republican, when all said and done, and this is just everything out the door, I did the math, and I'll explain the math, Trump would win the state by 42,000 votes. Okay? So that's an extremely conservative number. I think he'll probably win the state by about a couple of points, probably more like 150,000 votes or something. I'm not really sure. But based on 42,000 votes, I'm confident that it's going to go to Donald Trump. Okay? So, based on the Florida metrics that I provided, I predict that Florida is going to go to Donald Trump. Okay? So, right now, you see it's a close race. 251 to 242 in favor of Donald Trump. Okay? So, as I said, I mean, this is interesting. Okay? And so we're going to move on to the next state, which is Pennsylvania. We have North Carolina as well. So we'll go ahead and move on to North Carolina. Okay? And we're going to go ahead and take a look at the North Carolina data real quick. Republicans are overperforming percentage-wise, but look, we have about 85% of the votes already casted. Okay? So I expect Republicans to do a little bit better, but the Democrats still have the lead, okay? Democrats have the lead by about 67,000 votes, okay? But there's a lot more voting, and there's still votes to be counted, okay? So I really wasn't sure who to give this to, because you don't have that many votes left. I do believe that the voting's going to be more. But what I went ahead and did is I went ahead and took a look at this other map, in the North Carolina interactive map that I have here, and I'll show you this side. It looks like Trump is overperforming a little bit here. Okay, and as I said, I don't know how accurate this map is, but he is overperforming. Okay, so based on that alone, I think he'll win by a couple of points. Last time he won by 3.7. Okay, and so I think he'll get it by 2. I think he'll win it by 2 points. Okay, and so now it's 266 to 242. We're going to go ahead and move on to the state of Pennsylvania. Now, this state's very interesting because I had to do some mathematics to make a prediction on this state. When you look at it, it is extremely lopsided. The Republicans had the lead by 8%. Now the Democrats are just absolutely humiliating them. Okay? And this is mainly because of the mail-in ballots. A lot of mail-in ballots that came in. Okay? And I did some math on it. based on the voting. Okay, so what I went ahead and did was I took the total number. Okay, and I added these up. You know, Biden and Trump. I came up with a number here. Let me pull this up real quick, and I can tell you what I did. Okay, so I added these up, and I subtracted it by the total amount of votes in 2016. Okay. After I did that, I came up with a number for 2016. It's about 4,000 votes, a little over four. I mean, it's a little over 4 million votes. Okay, and so I did the 58-42 rule. Okay, because we don't. This is mainly mail-in ballots. So the rest of the voting is going to be done in person. And since Florida is similar to Pennsylvania somewhat as far as how he won, it was only a half a point difference. I'm going to do the 58-42 rule in the state of Pennsylvania based on 2016 voting numbers. So I had, so right now, this is the number for the Democrat and Republicans. Once I did the math, in-person voting, Republicans have about 2,350,000 votes, and the Democrats had about 1,700,000 votes. It came to about 100,000 vote lead in favor of the Democrats. Okay, and I have my suspicions of this state. I don't know how fair they're doing it. I heard some things that some Republicans are not getting their ballots. I'm not really sure. I'm just looking at the math here, and it does not look good for Republicans. Okay, and so, you know, I had it. I can tell you the exact number I had. The Democrats had a 3,131,833 votes. The Republicans had 3,033,645. So it's about a difference of 100,000 votes, and that's about 2%. Okay, so I predict Biden's going to win the state by about 2%, and that's going to go Democrat. Okay, and so now the last state determines everything. Okay. And that's the state of Wisconsin. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the data for Wisconsin. All right. So in the state of Wisconsin, Republicans are overperforming. Democrats had a 9% lead in 2016. That lead has shrunk to a little bit more than 1%. Okay. And Republicans are trailing by 22,000 votes. And you had about 55% of the votes casted. So you have 45% of the votes remaining in this state. Okay. And if you look at the past, they're definitely doing better than 2016, the Republicans. And I actually monitored this state as well. The Democrats had a 50,000 vote lead back on Tuesday, the 27th, and the Democrats had a 50,000 vote lead. That lead has shrunk to 22,000. So there's actually more. It's actually shrinking a lot more than, let's say, Michigan. Okay, there's a difference. You see, the pattern is different. Okay, that's why I like to look at the trends to see what's going on. And based on as far as the total amount of votes, how Trump won by percentage-wise, it was similar to Florida by a half a point. Okay, so I just kind of used the same model, and Trump would win the state by over 200,000 votes, people. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I came to 220,000 votes based on the math. So. I don't think he's going to win it quite that much. I'm going to give him a 2-point lead, but that's enough for him to win. Okay? And so I predict that Donald Trump is going to have 276 electoral votes, and Biden's going to have 262 electoral votes. Okay? This is based on pure mathematics. I know the polls show that Trump is losing in this state. But I will say this, back in 2016 when he went against Hillary Clinton, the state of Wisconsin was one of the states that was off big time. Okay? And I believe that the state is off even more. Okay? They just don't know how to poll in the state. So, anyways, this is it. This is my map. Donald Trump 276, Joe Biden 262, with Wisconsin being the state that stays Republican and keeps Donald Trump in the White House. Let me know what you think. I know a lot of people are not going to like this, especially the liberals, but you know the media likes to they like to say a narrative. They like to say how, you know, all this early voting's going on and Democrats are just outvoting Republicans. But when you actually look at the data does not support that. Like and subscribe to my channel. Any comments would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.